Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Growth Support Conversation. My name is Neil, and today we have an amazing conversation with Susana de Sousa. And to set the tone for the conversation, I want to go through a couple of things. Number one, this conversation is a longer one. Normally, the conversations we have are around 30 minutes or so. This one is about 60 minutes. So if you want to take a pause, take a break, it's great. At the same time, it's an amazing conversation all the way through, which is why I didn't break it into parts. And I just wanted to make sure that kind of go into it understanding that because I know that long conversations can be hard to keep for my own listening as well. So just a little bit of a disclaimer there. This conversation is with Susana de Sousa. She's an amazing person who's scaled a few different support organizations with the likes of Loom and Airbnb, and continues to share that experience as a CX advisor. And she's also trying to help 100 people find jobs this year, which is, I think, an amazing goal and something that I want to highlight up front. And the last thing, just before we dive into this conversation, is I want to tell you where it came from. Susana created a LinkedIn post, and this is what sparked the conversation, and we're going to mention it a lot. So I just want to read it just to make sure that everybody has the context that they need to get the most out of this conversation as possible. That LinkedIn post says, hot take, I don't believe in customer centricity. Customer centricity is a nice sounding buzzword, and it's useless if the business doesn't thrive too. I believe in creating value for customers, employees, and the business. Because let's be real, companies can go under despite having perfect satisfaction scores. Teams can burn out trying to maintain delightful service 24/7, and support teams can chase vanity metrics like CSAT, but ignore efficiency. The best companies balance value creation for everyone. CX leaders, founders, what's your take? Well, I had a lot of thoughts on that. And at the same time, that's exactly where we're going to in this conversation. So without further ado, we're actually going to dive straight in, and I hope you enjoy it. I saw your post and I was like, wait, this is a bit of a hot take. Initially, when I saw it, I was like, but wait, it's not customer centricity. I was like, this is the whole point of the post.
Yeah, to be honest, like I wanted it to be like a bit of a hot take, because for me, the problem for me, not a problem. Like I feel like it's an interesting perspective where people just like really like double down on like what is customer centricity? Like what does it mean? Like how can we be it? But at the end of the day, like if you're running a support org, a CX org, if you're working in any like customer facing role, if you're not adopting customer centricity as kind of like your approach and your strategy, then like what are you doing? Are you just providing like a terrible experience? No, no, that's not what you're doing. And so the whole point of that post was, one, to like start a discussion, which it did, which is great, and I'm really grateful, and I appreciate everyone who like left comments, including you, so thank you. And two, to kind of try to provide this idea of, at the end of the day, like the label doesn't really matter that much. Like it's not that serious. Like we're all working towards the same goal, which ideally is to provide a great support experience or customer experience, right? But that is like, we're all customer centric. The thing is, how are we doing it, right? So like, are we saying customer is king? Like, let's do everything. Like we need more budget, we need more people. Or are we thinking about it in a way of, we want to provide this type of experience. This type of experience is measured by these metrics. We know that if we hit these metrics, we're going to provide an amazing experience for our customers, for our users. And so how can we achieve that from a scalable, sustainable, efficient way, right? And it's a way that it doesn't put your support team at risk, because no one is getting burnt out. No one is getting that pressure of, I need to like go above and beyond like every single time. What is going above and beyond also? And so the point here is really just kind of like trying to figure out, like labels don't matter that much. It matters that you're creating like a sustainable experience for everyone, team, customers, and business. That was kind of the point, or the idea.
I think that's great. I mean, I think you need to have the balance, right? Like
Yeah.
the 3 points of it, because at some point, if you drive one, it's super easy if the business is like way far removed, and then the teams feel like, oh, it's us trying to help customers against the business,
Yeah.
and we're a bit pressured. If it's just the business and teams, then yeah, are you really customer centric? And
Yeah,
if
we
it's
had
just the customers and
sorry.
business, then teams are gonna get burnt out. So
We gotta have the trifecta.
yeah,
It's
indeed.
it's so important. And I think like that's the problem with, or that's a challenge with a lot of support strategies out there, is that they're focusing on two things and maybe like doing two things really well, but like forgetting the third. And the third could be the team or it could be the business. Typically, it's not the actual customer experience because that's what they're there for.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, right? Hello, British Airways again. I keep going at British Airways for just the most terrible support experience ever. Anyway, but like that's the thing. Like I see a lot of situations where support teams have such an opportunity to like position themselves as a value generator for the business and for the customer, but they're not kind of explaining that correctly. And basically like that post about customer centricity just links directly to kind of like the idea of value enhancement. And this has been like a topic that I've been harping on since I read it on a Gartner report like back in 2021 or 2022. And at the time, it was really interesting to me because Gartner was like the future of customer service. And essentially, they were like, CSAT sucks, NPS sucks. Like, let's focus on value and like value enhancement and like how do we kind of like measure that? And reading through the studies and kind of like trying to understand it, and then even like taking that methodology going into Loom and saying, okay, let's pause CSAT, let's try to figure out this value enhancement. Like, it was really interesting because so the results there were that we asked our customers if they were able to achieve more with Loom after a support interaction instead of like the normal CSAT, hey, are you happy with it? And after asking that one question for a period of time, 75% of the customers replied with strongly agree that they were able to achieve more with the tool. And for me, that was like a very interesting turning point when it comes to value and customer centricity or sales approaches or sales led conversations. It just created this notion that if a customer has a support interaction, after that support interaction they feel more equipped, more able to deal with the product. And that to me is the relationship between support and product, but also support and sales and revenue, right? And so we're basically validating the purchase. We're basically saying, hey, you're using these features or you're using this feature not correctly. Here's how you can improve that. And creating trust and creating strength in that relationship. And we're also providing a great support experience or a great customer experience. So it just goes way beyond that. Are you happy with this interaction? Yes, no. Give us a little one-liner of qualitative feedback, maybe like 5% of the times, into like measurable impact of the support team in that customer's experience. And for me, that was like mind-blowing completely, and something that I haven't shut up about since.
You have a very different perspective, right? When it comes to just having a, hey, was that interaction good or not? But it's like, did you actually go the little bit extra mile to make sure that you feel more secure and feel like you're being well taken care of when it comes to your experience? Because we do ultimately want to set you up for success. We don't want you to have to keep coming back to support and keep getting all those things and be able to say, hey, like, we did actually prepare you for a better use of our product in the longer run. I was a bit surprised when I saw the post that you're talking about, because I was like, but yeah, that by definition is not customer centricity. Like, of course, when you say like, yeah, customer is king, like, do everything you can for the customer, go, bend over backwards, do the thing. Like, in a way, that's a bit of a misconstrued customer centric point of view, I guess. Because for me, when I think like when I saw customer centricity, I'm like, but no, like customer centricity to me is like we're listening to customers, we're taking in all of that feedback, we're absorbing like what they're actually telling us to be able to build. We're educating internal teams about the needs of our customers. We're talking about internally, how can we better build our product to serve our customers? And it's not bending over backwards for them, but listening to them and building towards a future that improves it. That's why I was like, but no, that's not right.
And I 100% agree with you. And that is what a customer experience should be, right? So like for me and for you, I feel like that's table stakes. Like that's literally what customer support and customer experience teams, anyone that's customer facing, should be doing. And that's what we were doing at Loom. And I never called our approach at Loom customer centric, even though like we were doing every single thing that you just mentioned. And for me, like again, it's just not about like the how you're going to call it. It's about like what you're doing. And the biggest challenge or the biggest opportunity is I feel like we're focusing so much on like these labels that we're forgetting about other things. And in this case, it's like the value, the positioning, the what does it mean, right? To be both customer centric, but also be creators of value, be creators of revenue, be creators of X, Y, and Z in a way that is sustainable, that doesn't burn your team out, that doesn't, hurt the customer because of a bad support experience, and also elevates and positions your support team as a value creator for revenue, a team or a function that like actually generates value in your business. And so I 100% agree with you. It is so important to do all those things. And I think that there's like a really interesting direct bridge into voice of the customer. And we were just talking about this as well, but these days, if we don't know what the customer is going through, if we don't listen to them, if we don't not closing the feedback loop, then like, what are we doing? We're just like basically having two parallel experiences where customers are having one experience and the support team is having another experience of trying to fix the issues. But if we're not converging and we're not saying, okay, this is the data of what you're experiencing, these are the pain points of what you're experiencing, taking that data, creating measurable and actionable outcomes of that data, and then closing the feedback loop, whether the issue is fixed or not fixed, or doesn't have a fix, or it's not going to have a fix. That's also something to understand and try to figure out like workarounds, band-aid solutions, like whatever, because at the end of the day, it comes back to the experience, right? If I have a very broken experience with a product that I use every single day and I reach out to support can either help me or not help me. It's very binary, right? Doesn't mean that they're not going to answer the question or like, leave me ghosted. But when they answer, they will either help me fix the issue or not. And if they don't, that doesn't mean that it's their fault. Maybe it's just not on the roadmap. Maybe it's something that, I want to do with the product that it's just not supported, and it's not going to be supported because it's a singular use case. It doesn't matter what it is, but I'm going to walk away from that interaction with either no resolution, a high effort resolution, a low effort resolution, or some value enhancement of my experience. And maybe support couldn't fix that for me. Maybe they couldn't, like it's a feature that doesn't exist, but perhaps they also provided a band-aid. They provided a workaround. They said, hey, you can't do this. How about you do that? And that to me is value enhancement because I learned something. I uncovered a way to use the product that I didn't know of before. I created a relationship with the person that I spoke with. And now they understand where I'm coming from. Ideally, that support team recorded and documented what I needed, took it, measured it, did whatever they needed to do into the voice of the customer. But again, like going back to it, as a customer, I felt valued. So that to me is customer centricity. I was listened to, I got an answer. From a value creation perspective, there's now data that was measured. My value was enhanced as a customer because that relationship was validated and I learned something new. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if it's customer centric or value centric or sales led. It just matters that there was value that was created from that interaction that ideally didn't have to ever happen if I didn't have a broken experience or I didn't have a question, right? And so then we even go back to the pre-support experience of
do we set them up for success and
yeah,
be able to actually set the right expectations for the experience?
Exactly. Because support doesn't start, or customer experience, right? The whole thing. Support is like in the middle of it. Like there's a whole part of customer experience that includes support, but it doesn't mean that I have to contact anyone. It's just like it's there, and it's completely impacted by what the support teams are doing with the data of the requests that they get. Like if you think about your user base and you look at your contact rate, not everyone in your user base is reaching out to you, but what is the probability or the likelihood that other people are having the same issue? It's probably high, right?
And just don't even feel the need to contact them, or don't want to go through the effort of it because they think it won't be listened to or something like that is also probably a part of it. I think if they have previous interactions where maybe that value was enhanced, where they're like, oh, I had this issue, I reached out, they really helped me, they gave me a great experience. Most likely, probably in the future, if there is an issue, you're actually building that loyalty to where they're like, oh, if there is an issue, I know that I can reach out, I know I'll be taken care of, and they know that I can continue to have a good experience or be on the way as well.
Absolutely. It's an investment, right? And another way to look at it is, do you guys run webinars?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have customers asking questions during the webinar?
Yes.
And it would be interesting to me, because at Flume we ran webinars towards the end, and we would always have like a support team member, join and answer questions. And at the time I didn't think of this, but it's been kind of in my mind that it would be interesting to measure if the customers that are asking questions in the webinar have also asked questions through like support channels before or will in the future. Because sometimes you're like working with a product, there's an issue, right? You're not going to contact support. It's not that serious. Like restart, you're busy, you go on with your day, whatever it is, like you'll deal with it tomorrow. Who hasn't done that? I do that all the time. Just like, oh, it's not working right now, put it in the back.
I literally did that like 5 minutes ago. I was sitting with a teammate trying to get my account activated for something, and I was like, I logged in and I was trying to do one little feature change, trying to move a document to one thing to another, and for some reason the system didn't let me just move it, and I was like, I can't move it. Who knows? And then I just moved on, and they were like, did you just moved on from an issue and accepted it in like 2 seconds? Like, what are you doing?
Right?
Like, it's not worth it, so just move on.
Exactly. And it's like it's not worth it thing that is incredibly important at the end of the day, because it can also result in a couple of different outcomes, right? So you go on with your day, you decide this is no longer important, and so I'm not going to go back to this tool or to this platform if it's not something that you have to, and you move on, or you find a different tool. And for example, in Loom's case, it was incredibly easy to run into not incredibly easy to run into a technical issue, but if you did run into a technical issue, it was incredibly easy to find a competitor. There's a million other companies out there that do the same thing. And especially if you're a free user and you don't have like that much skin in the game with Loom, maybe you recorded one video, maybe not, it's a Chrome extension, you don't have the app, you're not like in the ecosystem, whatever. You're just like, oh, this doesn't work, then download the next Chrome extension, this works now, whatever, right? And you never contacted Loom support. You never waited for a resolution. You just moved on. Very low.
So I have this customer.
There you go. You are, and me too. Like yesterday, I was looking for a platform to help me with a specific use case, and I had like 5 of them. 2 of them were like waitlist. 1 of them looked hard, and 2 were like interesting. And I couldn't find a way to like sign up in one of them. So I was just like, discard, like it's not worth my time to like dig into this. And so in this world where we're making decisions quickly, we don't have time to wait for people to like get back to us. It's very easy to just like open up Google or Perplexity or anything that is going to help us get to information quicker and search for an alternative, which there are plenty. And so the point here is, if we're digging into this, like, it's not worth it, like I don't have time, and going back to that, webinar situation where it would have been really, really interesting to look at these customers who are like dropping questions in the webinar because they know someone is there, because it's like a very interactive environment, and then see, have they ever contacted the support? Probably not, because they don't want to go through the effort of, submitting a ticket. But if they're already there, then they're going to talk to someone. And so then it becomes a conversation of, if support or if the customer experience improves in terms of like proactiveness, is there value to the customers, right? So can we measure, after speaking with a support person or after speaking, with someone during a webinar, did this customer go on to become more engaged, more active, spend more money? Right. And so at Loom, we actually did something like this, not for the webinars, but for becoming an active user after speaking with support. And we saw that for, it was, I think, like during your first week of user, like you have an account, if you talk to Loom support, you were like 28% more likely to record a video, which for us at the time was our activation metric. And so, or 28 or 78. Now that's a big difference. So I should probably check on that. I don't remember at the top of my head, but it was something significant where we were like, well, we know if people run into an issue and talk to support, they are going to activate and stay with Loom. If they're going to run into an issue, they're an early user, run into an issue, not contact support, they're just going to leave. And so that's a wasted, missed opportunity. And so I forget how we got here, but basically circling around, I am of the opinion that it is incredibly important to understand every single potential touch point in a user's experience, figure out how to proactively set them up so that if they do run into an issue, which we all do for every single platform that we use, it's rare that we don't, then we don't have to ask for support, that we get that support. And that could be in a myriad of ways. It can be through self-serve, it can be through like actually talking to someone, it can be like getting a call proactively on our phone, like whatever the product is, right? But the important thing is that we don't have that moment where we're like, this is not worth it, this is too hard. Open Google, find alternatives. It's anticipating that and acting on it.
Oh, it's also like one of the curious things that you mentioned or thoughts that went through my head is that when you say, oh yeah, they contacted the team in the webinar because they're there, they're live, but I would beg the question, why is joining the webinar and asking your question there easier than contacting your team?
I know, right? I know, right?
That would in itself is a question. But we did something similar as well. We ran an analysis of the first 30 days. So we looked at the first 12 months of a member's life cycle, essentially, and looked at all the platform activities that they do within the first, different phases of that period along the 12 months. And one of the things that we also found is those that contacted support within the first 30 days had actually a higher chance to be more sustainable customers, because maybe that not all support contacts are issue-based support contacts. There are also moments for education. There are also moments for value and setting a better experience up in the forefront. And then how do you say, hey, okay, well, we know that doing that is great. We know that building that is great. How can we start to build that in a more efficient way and kind of get those value-driven questions more proactively implemented in customer education or onboarding, et cetera, where it can become a much more sustainable model for that as well. So like your support team is not just issues and builders or issue fixers, but there is also a really good opportunity. And I think one of the things that goes back to the initial part of the conversation around customer centricity and enhancing that value is, how can you start to build that muscle of what I would consider real customer centricity, or like not the label, but the actual practice? How do you start building that within your organization?
Oof, that's a really good question. For me, like if I look back at my time at Loom, for me, first of all, it starts with the hiring, right? And trying to figure out how you can hire people that are and I'm going to say product-minded here, right? Not customer-centric, because if you're hiring for customer support, the likelihood is that you're going to get people that have done this before, know what customer support is, are good at delivering customer support. You're not going to hire someone who's not good at that. But I challenge that and look for people that are also product centric, and again, label. But what do I mean by that? That think in a way of, okay, there's a feature, what is the activation rate? What is the retention rate? Like, how can we get customers to adopt to this feature efficiently? And why is that important? Because then you're not having this conversation, or you're not having a support interaction, just like, okay, here's how you fix that. You're looking at it with the kind of like the optics or the perspective of, here's how you can fix that so you can be more successful with the product, so you can get value from the product, because this is how it works and this is the use case. And it's going to help you with your job to be done. Like, that was a framework that we used very early on at Loom to understand why people were using Loom, and then building content and then building the product towards those jobs to be done. Like, what job are you trying to get done with Loom? And so having that understanding, having that perspective and that awareness, I think is incredibly important as a support experience person or customer experience person, like in this day and age. And then as a leader, I think it becomes even more important to embody that and talk about it, and really like lead by example in everything that you're doing, not just on how to like deliver a good support experience, but like how to deliver an amazing customer experience from the moment where they don't need to contact support until way past their customer. You know, like maybe they've left the platform, there's still opportunity for them to have a great support experience, a great customer experience, because maybe they might come back in the future. Like, once someone leaves, it doesn't mean that they're gone forever. It's very easy to leave, but it's also very easy for them to come back. And so all of it matters. And how you kind of like act as a leader for that team is going to influence how people, and your team obviously, sees every single interaction and positions themselves as value creators of the company, essentially. Brand ambassadors, even.
Okay, Liz, I love this perspective. I'm going to start a whole different discussion here. And this is totally off topic, but similar to what you say. But wouldn't you say that that perspective is the definition of the difference between customer service and customer support?
What do you mean?
Like, it's super nuanced, and I think you have to be a bit like. I've read so many things, and there's been so many conversations about there's kind of those 4 different pillars of customers, and like customer functions, essentially. You have service, you have support, you have success, and you have experience, and they all serve different purposes. I know, this is what I'm saying. It's super off topic. It's a totally different conversation.
No, I love it. I'm just really bad with the definition.
But that's the specific part of it, like that is a bit different. And when I think of it, like, to me, service itself is like, you come in, you get the actual help with the action that you need. You get that issue resolved, you're in, you're out, you're on your way. I walk into, I buy something from Walmart, I want to go return it, I go to the desk, I return it, I walk away. Customer service.
You were serviced.
You're done. Support, on the other hand, not only takes that return in, but also helps recommend maybe a different or alternative product, tries to get the overall little bit more further experience done. They categorize that, they take it, they try and build that larger picture perspective into the product side. It's a little bit more of that blend, whereas then success is creating that actual value and really proactively supporting that, making sure that you get the maximum value that you can out of it. Make sure that you're really successful in reaching your individual goals as a customer. And then the experience is that the whole start to finish experience. Very random, off topic. I totally get it, but
no, I think you're totally right. I do think it's kind of like there's levels to it, right? And like that almost goes back to kind of like the no resolution, high effort, low effort, bike value creation. Again, like, it's, for me, it's basically, it's like labels. And I think that like most company or all companies really need to like spend some time trying to define, okay, what is like an optimal customer experience? What is customer support reactively, like trying to define like all of this, whether it is in the definitions that you provided or anything else. Like if we look at like Brian Chesky from Airbnb, and recently he had this whole like framework of like the 11-star experience. And so for like Airbnb, their framework of like what a great customer experience looks like is different than what my framework would be at Loom and like what your framework is. And at the end of the day, for me, it's value creation, value enhancement. And then from there, it's like if your goal is to create value, what does it look like, proactively, reactively, minimum value, maximum value, and try to like brainstorm those ideas to see, okay, this is how we can deliver that. This is how we cannot deliver that with the current resources. But if we do want that, then this is what we would need. And like try to figure out and plan for the future based on that. But I do think that you're completely right with those definitions. It's a very good example. Like I can see it happen. Like who hasn't bought something and had to like return it? And I've been, I've received customer service a lot of times. I've received customer support a few times, and I've had like the customer experience success part of it, like even less times, right? Because that's the goal, and that's really hard to achieve. But it is also kind of the challenge and the opportunity here is to move from like that service only to that experience success value creation. Ideal, like blue sky scenario. Oh my God, I cannot speak today. Yeah, that.
I think it's interesting, right? Because like I think ultimately it boils down to people get lost in the like definition of it when it comes to like semantics of like, hey, this word means that thing and this word means that thing, and this is very specific, and you're wrong, you're right, this kind of thing. And I think it's something that people get lost in a lot, or maybe focus on too much, when ultimately at the end of the day, the organization itself is there to, one, there would be no organization without customers. Number two, like ultimately customers are going to your organization to solve a goal and get value out of your product. And if you can further enhance that value, and if you can better create loyalty through the interactions that you have, then you're already on the right path to be able to do that. And it's not about the definition and the semantic. And that's like sometimes when you talk about like maybe documentation or content strategy or knowledge management, then definitions are really important.
Yeah, for sure.
Using the same language as your customers, like this kind of thing, like that then definitions become very, very important for alignment. But at the same time, like when it comes to frameworks and what you're trying to do for customers. Yeah.
I agree. And it's also like very easy to talk about this in like theoretical terms, like create value for your customers, but like what does that actually mean in a practical scenario? And unfortunately, like there's no formula for it. Like it's going to really come down to every single team's definition of what value is and their resources and like what they can do and all of that, right? And so it's easy to sit here and be like, the optimal scenario is you have to create value, and Gartner says this and Gartner says that and blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, it's like, what can you do today that means that your customers are going to walk away with more value and a better experience than before, but also trying to figure out how to do that at scale, how to do that sustainably, and how to do it in a way that benefits your team, the business, and the customers.
Yeah.
Easy peasy, right?
And revisiting each one of those in rotation and making sure that they're not necessarily dropped. I think some very, very, very practical things, like if you wanted to do something today, like look and review your policies and how rigid they are, like building flexibility when empowering your teams to be able to take certain measures to better support customers and not feel blockaded. Like there's so many times and you're just like, as a rep or something, where you're like, nope, I can't do anything, sorry. And then the customer is like blocked, the team is blocked. And being able to look at that and build some flexibility that also creates some structure for the organization to account for that. It's very, very small things, like in an incident, for example. Whenever we run incidents, part of our incident management process is what's down and what still works. And actually saying to a customer like, hey, this and this piece are down, but if you'd still like to use this and this and this piece, it's definitely still available for you. You can still go and continue your development or learning. We're a learning company. So in that sense, actually being able to still continue to get some level of development or knowledge that they were looking to is a way to at least kind of continue building that value, even in a situation that is not ideal for anybody.
That's a really, really good point. And you were talking and sharing, and what came to my mind was multiplier effect. And this is something that, if I can tie back to a previous question that you had around like how to build like that team that is very like customer centric, value centric, and something that I try to teach, or not teach, but like use as an example to like inspire is, you know, as you're dealing with customers, as you're trying to fix an issue, you have a support ticket right in front of you, you can ask yourself, like, what is the potential multiplier effect of this conversation, of this interaction? And seeing, okay, if this customer is dealing with, you know, they don't know how to add more users to their account, like very simple question, they had to reach out to support. Well, that signals that either one, the product is not easy to use, or there's no documentation that addresses this. Maybe the customer didn't look for it. It doesn't matter. We can check still and try to figure out, okay, I have two choices here, or two items that I can immediately address. One is obviously to educate the customer on how to do this and set them up for success. And two is look at the reason why this question even was created in the beginning, and assume that other people are going to run into the same issue. And so if I have an action of, you know, creating product documentation, using a voice of the customer framework to, you know, report this, create data around it, etc. If this gets improved because of that single interaction, then my actions have a multiplier effect. I'm going to be able to impact other customers, other users that potentially would run into the same issue at scale because of the actions that I took from this conversation, from this interaction. And so the idea of like multiplier effects, using them actively on a day-to-day, and maybe you don't have to even like go to the documentation and like rewrite it. Maybe it's just a note that you take and then you share with your team lead or your manager, it doesn't matter. But just like taking that step instead of just like, you know, send an archive, you know, close ticket, whatever, and no one else knows what this is. Macro send, done. It's like taking that, just like that extra step of asking yourself, why? Why did this happen? And writing a note about it, or something that can be extracted and shared with someone. And it's not, you know, it doesn't have to wait for the monthly voice of the customer review, where maybe that conversation is buried under account management. It depends how granular you are, like, I don't know. But that you can have like the insight from that ticket, from all of the tickets that you take on a specific day, and say, today I had this type of conversations. These are potential action items that we can take, tasks that we can do based on them.
I have a really good example of this. One of my team members, before when they started, like maybe a month or two after, so some fresh pair of eyes, always good.
Always good.
Always good. But like we have a contact form on our website. At first, it was just an email contact form, so it just said like, "Hey, what's the subject? What's your email? How can we help?" And they were like, "Well, I have the feeling I don't ever have enough to like actually help these people. Like they always just come with us with like one line, or they just put a subject and they don't put anything. And like I need to kind of really try and translate." And they said, "Well, I feel like can we change that form? Number one, can we make a change on it? Number two, like I feel like if we just ask them for a little bit more context, we would be able to help them way better.
Yep.
And what ended up happening, we switched it. So we made it more like subject and then a little description box that says like one line description of your issue. And then instead of having like the question, how can we help? We just put like description, hey, any context or anything that you feel would help us help
I
you in
love
the
that.
best way possible. Go ahead and provide that here. And then we got way better quality of context, which
That's
means that we
amazing.
could be able to help. And it's like small changes like that too. It doesn't need to be a huge, crazy change to make a difference.
No, something so simple, but with multiplier effect, right? Like that's amazing. And going back just quickly to the value creation, you created value for the customer because there's less back and forth, right? So less back and forth of your team asking, what do you mean? How can we help? Can you send this? Can you send that? Like blah, blah, blah. Can you clarify? Like that's less back and forth, which means less frustration, which means less time to get to resolution, which is key. Like how long from the moment that you submit the tickets to the moment that you have the resolution, how long does it take, right? If you decrease that, everyone's happy. Then value creation for your team, because they're not as frustrated trying to figure out and like read between the lines and like figure out the context there, right? So it's clear, they can immediately jump to the resolution. And value creation for the business, because if everything is better, then the business is going to be better. The customer is going to stay longer. The customer is going to enjoy being a customer. So yeah, that's amazing. I love that example.
The nice thing is too, with fuller context in the first place, we get to be able to draw better insights from actually why they're contacting us.
Exactly.
And actually fix whatever it is.
And isn't that amazing? And this is also an example of going from an high effort resolution to low effort, which is so important.
I love also one story that you've told before was when someone, I forget who it was exactly, came up to you at a conference or an event and said like, oh, like I want to talk to you specifically because you being hired so early in the Loom experience just goes to show that organization is thinking about customers first and having that early customer hire as a part of it. And we talk about a lot of smaller organizations quite a bit, but as an early customer hire, I'm also curious how you start really getting that ball rolling earlier in the life cycle of the organization.
That's a really good question. When you say like the ball rolling, do you mean in terms of like creating that customer centricity, the value, all of that?
Yeah, building that mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I work with early stage companies now, and it's been like such an interesting process. I absolutely love, because it brings me back to kind of like that time at Loom where, you know, I was the only customer facing person and had like this challenge of, you know, thousands of conversations coming to me. And I had so much more to do outside of issue resolution, right? Because we were trying to like scale this company. And so that was like the customer facing challenge of it was, I have a lot of data coming in. I also have to make a lot of stuff. And so what can I do? I can take that data, I can figure out how to build the foundation, and then I can scale it out. And so this is basically what I try to help my clients with is, okay, if you do have those touch points, what are you doing with them? Like, do you understand why they're happening? And I wrote about this on LinkedIn just this week, which for me, you know, there's, especially now that we're in the age of AI and chatbots were, you know, talk of the town last year, especially. It feels like if you don't have a chatbot, you're falling behind. So obviously people like navigate to having one. But the thing for me is, it's great that you have one. You should have one if like that applies to your business. But do you know why you're having one? Do you know why customers are reaching out to you? Because if customers are reaching out to you for specific reasons, you're slapping a chatbot on top of that, you're never going to see those requests because they're going to get solved outside of your inbox, right? Your team is not going to work through them. And so how do you know how to solve them? Like, are you actively reviewing them? Do you know what the issues are? Are you trying to fix those on the back end? Because if you do that, then you're reducing the contact rate, which is great because your customer base is going to grow. And with that, even if your contact rate stays the same, which is unlikely if you're not looking at the root cause, even if it stays the same, your volume is going to grow. You're going to spend either more money on chatbot volume costs, or you're going to have to hire more people. And so for me, going back to kind of your question, sorry, I keep rambling. For me, like the most important thing when you're early stage is building that foundation of understanding things at scale. And Loom was an incredible example because Joe, the founder, and this is also a story I like to tell, he like sat down with me, you know, in my first 3 months there, and he was my manager at the time. Like I reported to him, and you know, I was all ready with like kind of like my summary, like okay, this is what's been happening, like this is what we need to fix. And he didn't want to hear about it. He was just like, tell me your vision for, you know, when we have to support 1 million users. And I'm like, we have 80,000. Like, this is not a problem. This is not a today problem. We have too much work with 80,000. I don't want to talk about 1 million. And he was just like, no. Like, let's talk about 1 million, because 1 million is going to help us plan backwards. And to this day, like I love thinking about that moment because it changed my perspective on what I was doing on my day-to-day. You know, I was fighting fires, which is a very common situation for most support teams to be in. Yes, I've been there. We've all been there. We all do it. And sometimes you can't help but be in that situation, and it's completely outside of your control, and it's fine. Early stage though, it might hurt and it might be a lot of work, but the best thing that you can do is like try to figure out how you can step outside of that fire, look at that fire, maybe let it burn for a little bit. But when you're doing that, like really trying to figure out how that fire becomes an oasis, you know, and knowing that there's always going to be volume is trying to figure out, okay, what can I do today? What can I learn from this fire that is burning that is going to help me in the future? And so for us at Loom at that time, we were using Intercom, which is not the best, or it wasn't at the time. I don't know how it is now. So no dig on Intercom in that sense, but at the time it wasn't the best at like data categorization. They use tags. I know that they have fields now, which is great. But at the time it was tags, so I didn't have any like levels of granularity. Eventually we did move to Zendesk. We had a lot of granularity, which was great, but I still attribute that data and that categorization as what helped us scale and what helped us have, you know, a team of 25, 30 support people supporting 25 million, 26 million users when I left. That was cool.
Nice, and being able to work back. I would say if you want a whole conversation on that, like go backwards a year to our last conversation.
Yeah.
Where we just talked about that.
Yeah.
Which I think is great.
There's a lot to unpack around early stage and like thinking about the future and how to like set yourself up for success. Obviously, again, no formula. It just really depends on what you are dealing with. And Loom at the time was B2C and our product was free. So it also gave me a lot of freedom and flexibility of, hey, they're not paying customers. You know, I don't have that extra added pressure. Of course, there was pressure. We don't want free users to have a bad experience, but it's different, especially when you're B2B or you're enterprise. Completely different realities.
Yeah, indeed. Going back to our main topic of conversation being value additions and customer centricity, I think it's also really important to keep that in mind, that when you do end up, you know, being able to scale yourself, look at that fire and actually fix the core root of it, it will be that value enhancement in the longer term as well. Like, yes, you're going to maybe take a step back just to be able to deal with it. And in the immediate moment, you might see a bit of a delay, but ultimately in the longer term, it will be able to help you more in that sense, which I absolutely love. And I think, again, like the definition of customer centricity is really about being able to have that value add and be able to continue that process, one for the business, your teams and your customers in an iterative cycle where you're able to build it. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me and
Of course.
talking about it. I think it's great.
It's always a pleasure.
I always ask a question at the end, but I'm not sure if I asked you last time or not. The question of if you had one thing you learned over the course of your career that you still stick to today. You can answer that if you want, or I can ask you a different question if I asked you last time. We can do both. Why not?
I mean, I'd probably use that Loom example with Joe. I think that, I mean, that's definitely top of mind. But I mean, what haven't I learned? Like everything until like right now has been incredible. But you can definitely ask me a different one if that.
Let's switch it up. I got two questions for you. Well, one question, and then I want to talk about something else really quick before we go. Number one, what do you think this year? Is there anything specific that you're looking forward to this year in the CX space that feels a little bit different than last year?
That's a really good question. I don't want to be cheesy or repeat what's been going around, but you know, like I feel like there's a year for everything. Like we had the year of voice of the customer, we had the year of like self-service, we've had the year, like last year was the year of chatbots, and we started the year and the talk of the town is, you know, agentic AI, and a lot of people are not looking at agentic AI in customer supports, and I think that, or customer experience, and I think that is a missed opportunity. It's a challenge and an opportunity to be fair. Like having played around with some models and trying to figure out, like even automating my own personal life, I can see how there's going to be roles that are going to be affected monumentally with this kind of stuff. And for example, there's a company called N8N, which basically they do agentic AI. And yesterday or a couple of days ago, they posted like 10 jobs in customer support. And you only do that when you're growing like crazy, right? They're a German company. They're hiring, by the way, if anyone is interested. And I use their product. I pay for their product at the moment. And it's really kind of crazy that once you like start using it and start learning about it, like what you can achieve with it. And I see the practical applications in customer support. I see it in business development. I see it in a lot of stuff that is maybe also kind of like low-hanging fruit in a company. And so I think that whenever this kind of like it gets to a point where it's more at scale, it's going to have a monumental impact in all of our lives.
Interesting. I love that you mentioned that roles will be replaced at some point and scale, but also that they're hiring and that these roles are opening up. You yourself have a goal of finding people roles this year.
Yes.
And being able to help people find a job. Tell me about that. How's it going?
It's going pretty well, actually. Thank you for asking. I've been having a lot of fun. It's been really interesting to kind of connect people to companies, and I've been partnering with another company also, a project called Hiring Humans. And this week we introduced 5 people to hiring managers, like literally face to face. And so that to me is incredible. Like I wasn't able to do this more than like one person at a time, and in one day introduced like 5 people. And so now we're at the stage, or I'm at the stage of like trying to figure out how to like scale this out, which is an interesting thing to do like on my personal time, because I also have my customer experience advisory and I work with clients every week, so that obviously has priority. But to your point of like roles being affected and like kind of like the first level of support being affected, I honestly believe that that's going to happen more and more. It's just a matter of time. But also with this, there's a lot of new opportunities that will be created. I think that the whole point here and what I'm truly trying to kind of communicate is that everyone in customer experience needs to future-proof our career. This is something that we want to be in. And that means, learning new skills, but also just being aware of how things work. It doesn't mean that you have to go out and like learn how to like set up an API or like troubleshoot, these debug logs or whatever it is. It doesn't mean specifically that. It means that you have to understand what is happening, how that affects you, and how you can stay ahead of it. And having that perspective and that awareness of like the business implications is going to help you stay ahead of the curve, especially with AI at scale coming into businesses and affecting the way that customer experience and customer support is delivered. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I got a little bit blurry. Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah, there you go. But absolutely, I think like there will be a different level of skill set that you'll need to be able to keep up with the way that things are changing. It's no longer the fundamental skills that are transferable that you can build will still apply. But your ability to learn new systems, to adapt to new technology, these things will be really, really critically important. And I think it's amazing that you're connecting people with companies and organizations to be able to better find opportunities for them to make those adjustments as well. And I hope it goes well. I'm really excited to follow the journey.
Thank you. And thank you for your help with the expert chat. I can't wait to publish it.
No, it's going to be so exciting.
Yes.
Well, in that case, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me again.
Thank you. Are you kidding? This was wonderful. Like what an amazing way to, I was gonna say start my day, but I've had a couple of calls before, but start my day, It's always, first of all, it's always great to talk to you. Second, it's so energizing and so motivating. So thank you.